I can honestly say I had a period of time in my sobriety where I was, like, suicidal. I genuinely love myself now, like, there has not been any point in my life where I've ever cared for myself.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Welcome to Peggy's Recovery Corner. This is a recovery podcast. We bring all kinds of people on here. We bring people from all walks of life that have had addiction problems, alcoholism, mental health. Some of them have overcome their addiction problems. Some of them are deep in recovery. Some are new in recovery. We just want to be able to help people out there in the universe. Anybody that can tune in and try to learn from somebody else's experience and how they got sober. Today we have my friend Lauren.
I
I won't say it wrong this time. It's Lauren Nicole Carter, but it's Lauren.
It's Lauren, yeah.
This is Lauren.
It's Lauren.
Welcome to the corner.
Thank
We've
you.
been
Thank you
talking
for
about
having
having
me.
you on here for a while.
Yeah, I'm so excited that we're finally doing it.
You're a year and a month sober.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna go deep. We're gonna talk about a lot of things that you went through, but first, let's talk about your background. You are originally from where?
You're Belinda.
Okay, Yorba Linda, California.
Correct.
And what kind of area is that?
It's a really nice area, yeah. I went to private Christian school, preschool through 8th grade. So, I have a pretty good upbringing, but I chose not to follow that path apparently.
Okay, and when you say pretty good upbringing, were there any siblings? Was your parents were present in your life?
I have a brother. He's awesome. He's part of the reason that I ended up getting help. Um, and then I don't know my birth dad, but my mom got married when I was 5 and he adopted me and he's my dad. So
It's pretty much your dad. He
he's
raised
my
you.
dad,
Yeah.
period. He's the only dad I've ever had and he's my dad and I love him a lot.
Okay,
So
great. Um, you said siblings were how old?
my brother is about a year older than me,
A year
so
older.
he's 32 now.
Okay. So growing up in Yorba Linda, the mean streets, what were you doing over there?
Hmm.
I
Um,
mean, I know that area. Were you active in high school and things like that? Were you athletic or anything like that?
no.
No.
I didn't have very many friends. I ended up getting a boyfriend who was like into gaming and stuff like that. So naturally, I got into gaming. I built a computer when I was like 15 and I got really into that. So, I got addicted to video games just like I got addicted to drugs.
Would you say that was like one of your first addictions?
Yes, absolutely.
Do you think gaming can lead into other types of addictions for some people?
I think it just depends on the person, but yeah, for
Okay.
sure.
Now, when you were gaming at 15, you said when did you first start using drugs? At 15 too, right?
15, yeah,
And the first drug you used was?
ecstasy.
And I mean, that's usually not like a first drug that people would use. How did that come about?
So like I said, I had a boyfriend in high school. He was a year older than me. Um, he told me that he like went to my church and stuff like that. And I was like, "Oh, it's fine." And then, I really liked him and he was like, "Hey, like do you want to try this?" And I didn't want him to like break up with me because I wouldn't do it with him. So I was like, "Yeah, sure, whatever." So it was like exciting for me to try it because he wanted me to do it with him.
And what did you know about ecstasy before you tried it?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I didn't look into it either.
Never read up on it, never looked it up?
Nope.
Did he tell you it's going to make you feel blissful and good? And
Yeah, he just told me it was gonna make me feel really good and we were gonna have a really good time. So I was like, all right.
did you have a really good time?
Oh yeah. I enjoyed it way too much. It became like I would say 4 to 5 day a week thing for me. Um
You didn't really have to pay for it because it was readily available?
I mean I had to pay for it sometimes, but most of the time, yeah. We were friends with like the guy who was selling it. So if we did pay for it, we were paying like $2 to $4 a pill.
That's it?
That's it.
It's nothing.
Crazy, I know. That's how I was able to do it so much.
What was the come down like?
So, it was just like a lot of depression, isolation, and definitely a lot of like a wanting to like take my own life because I didn't know how to deal with the come down. So naturally, I would take more in hopes of feeling better.
What do you think about ecstasy is it that makes a person begin to have suicidal ideation?
So what I do know is it drains your serotonin levels in your brain, and I think that like, it just, like, boosts it so much while you're doing it that you're like, "Oh my gosh, this feels so good." But all of that is gone once it wears off, and, I was doing it so much, I got to the point where when I was coming down, I was in so much physical agony and pain that I had to take more, or my body would just be in so much pain, like, body cramps all over,
Mm.
um, and it was like having Charlie horses all over your body, not just your feet. So,
So ecstasy's a lot of times it's used like in the club scene, in like the raves and the clubs. Did you ever go to any of those
yes. So I was doing it at Disneyland a lot, but I was raving.
at
Um,
that young of an age, like 15?
no, I started going to raves when I was 17.
Okay. Disneyland. Obviously, because you live in Orange County, Disneyland is very closed.
Yes.
I lived in Orange County growing up too, and we would go take hits of acid or mushrooms and walk around Disneyland. It was
Yep.
always made for a very enhanced, animated trip
Experience. Yes.
experience. Yes. So, okay, did you ever get in trouble there while being on drugs?
Um, I didn't get in trouble for well, I didn't get in trouble at all. But my ex he was really abusive, and when he would start coming down, like, he would start freaking out on me, and there was one night where he was, like, screaming at me, and we were, like, really messed up. We had been drinking a little bit or they had been drinking a little bit, and, like, we all took ecstasy, and this guy, like, came up and was screaming in my ex's face, like, I'm going to, like, beat your ass right now," like,
This is at
this
Disneyland?
is at Disneyland outside of the gate to California Adventures, and the cops got called and stuff, and he ran, and I was crying, but, that was, like, normal because, when you're coming down, you get a little crazy.
There's an actual Disneyland jail too. Did he end up there?
You know what? One night when I was not there, he did get to Disneyland jail for drinking.
I always used
They
to
took away his pass.
I used to joke and say like, yeah, I woke up in Disneyland jail sitting next to Donald Duck and Goofy, like in jail outfits.
Yeah.
But so okay, outside of your experiences with MDMA, with ecstasy, what else did you get into and why?
Okay, so I would say I was about 17 when I started getting into opiates. I got a really bad tooth infection and they prescribed me hydrocodone and they gave me a refill for some reason. I don't know. I went and got it though. And
Well, how fast did you go through the first round?
the first round, probably 2 or 3 days, and the second one was 2 days. Um, I think there were about 30 pills in each bottle. And it just took off from there with my opiate addiction. Um,
So they were just pills.
they were just pills at the time, yeah.
Were you taking them orally? Were you smoking them? What were you doing with them?
So the hydrocodone I was taking orally, and I was only taking those for like 2 months, and then I started taking Roxy's because hydrocodone wasn't doing anything anymore, and I was snorting those.
Okay. What I mean, where did you get the idea to snort a pill?
The guy I was hanging out with, he was giving me them for free, which he did for 2 weeks, and then he started charging me for them. So,
Did it hurt when you would snort it?
A little bit, but not really.
And then it was just an immediate
It was just an immediate thing.
opiate high.
Yeah.
So after you ended up, going through all of that, then what did you do?
Well, I had a few friends at the time and they started to like not want to hang out with me anymore. I got called out pretty much. And they were like, "You're doing something and we know it. Like you are falling asleep when we're hanging out. You're constantly itching your face like there's something wrong." And I wanted none of that. So I isolated myself and ended up getting another bad boyfriend. Um, and the Roxys became not enough. Again, like they were really expensive. I was paying like $30 a pill for these, and I was taking 3 or 4 of them a day.
And you were working during that time to be able to support your habit?
Yes. So I was working at my family's insurance broker agency, and I was getting loaded the whole time. That was the only way I could maintain working, and I was able to maintain it for a while, but it became unmanageable. There was no way for me to maintain it anymore.
Was there people around you that you grew up with that you knew, like, from childhood and junior high and high school that were also on this path or using with you during that time?
Um, I did not really have any friends from, like, elementary school or middle school that I stayed friends with. I have, like, 1 or 2 people that I talk to now. Um, High school, no. I kind of became, like, just like a loner. Um, I wanted to use by myself so no one could call me out for it. It became easier, and then I started dating that guy, and when the Roxys became not enough, I started getting into heroin.
So, why did it, go into the direction of heroin? What happened there?
It was less expensive, and the guy that I was with was doing it, and um, it just seemed easier at the time.
Um, you were smoking heroin?
Yes.
And then what?
So I got sober for a little bit,
Why?
and
Why did you get sober?
um, I ended up telling on myself. My next door neighbor, I was friends with him growing up, and his sister also had the same problem I had. And I went and told him, I was like, "I've been doing heroin. I don't know what to do." I was losing my mind. Like, I was like, "I'm either gonna kill myself or I need to get help. Like, I don't know what to do." So he did tell my parents, and at the time I was so mad at him, which I don't know. I went and told on myself and then I got mad at him for telling on me. But
Think your conscience was messing with you?
yeah, for sure. Unfortunately, 3 days after I got out of treatment, I started taking Xanax, and, I just went right back into what I
Real
was
Xanax
doing.
during that time?
Yeah, they were prescription.
Oh, okay, then you got into, shooting heroin?
So, I would say that's, like, a little further down the line. I was, like, homeless for a couple of months when I started taking the Xanax, and then I called my now sister-in-law, and I was like, "Please come get me." Her and my brother were living in Flagstaff, Arizona. I was like, "I need you to come get me. I can't do this anymore."
What happened that you ended up going homeless? What life event happened that ended you up that way?
So, I signed, like, a little contract with my parents that if I were to use, I would get kicked out,
You were how
and
old then?
I was 20,
And you used.
and I used 3 days after I got out of treatment, and they immediately drug tested me because I was, like, falling everywhere. I mean, I was super loaded, and they were like, "You can go back to treatment or you can get out of our house," and I was like, "Bye, I'm getting out of here," and, that lasted, like, a month and a half, and I called my sister-in-law begging her to pick me up, and she did.
Mhm.
So I ended up moving to Arizona for a little bit, and I got off of the drugs, but I my 21st birthday came up and I started drinking
Hmm,
a lot.
wow. So, then you got into alcohol.
Yes.
And heroin became a thing of the past?
Yes, for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Alcohol was being pretty much you were doing alcohol, drinking it for the next 5 years?
Yeah, so, because I'd, like, been to rehab and stuff, I was like, "Oh, I'm clean, but I'm not sober," because I thought, like, it was totally okay for me to be drinking because I wasn't doing drugs anymore, which was definitely not true because I cannot drink like normal people drink at all.
So would it be fair to say that you weren't really, like, focusing on your recovery process?
Absolutely not. I was trashed every day.
Drunk,
Absolutely.
smoking weed,
No weed.
no other drugs?
Not until the 5th year, I started doing cocaine the 5th year.
Okay, and how long did you do coke for?
That was for a year.
And then did you get into crack?
That is when I got back on the heroin and I started doing meth with it. I had not done meth yet. So once I figured out I did a bump of meth and I was up for 4 days and I was like, "Oh, this is it." Like, I thought I had made it. I loved it. I loved being up for that long, but I wanted to be balanced out, so I started doing the heroin again with it, and, that's when I started shooting up.
Shooting up meth?
Meth and heroin together.
Goofballs.
Yes, goofballs.
And, what kind of feelings were you getting from that?
It was a very euphoric, type of feeling. I would get, like, a rush from that. Um
Hard on your body when you come down?
Oh, definitely, and that is actually when I was 25. I had my first overdose.
First one, 25 years old.
Yep.
Overdosed from meth and heroin?
Yes.
And were you hospitalized?
Yeah, they had to Narcan me 3 times. I woke up in the El Torito parking lot, like, on the ground, and they transported me to the hospital, so
Would it be fair to say in your mid-20s, you were pretty much a polysubstance abuser that was using all different types of drugs?
absolutely.
Crack.
Yeah, the crack came next. I got sober for about a year, and
You tried to get sober, like, with rehab or just on your own?
I went to rehab, and I overdid the meetings. So I wasn't working a program. I wasn't working the steps. I didn't get a sponsor. However, I was going to like 15 to 20 meetings a week. I had 8 commitments and I was helping organize the AA convention. I thought I was all that.
Were you close with your family during that year?
Absolutely not. I was a nightmare.
Okay, so where were you living?
I lived with my parents for a little bit and then I got another bad boyfriend that
So
I
for that year that you stayed sober, you were back with the parents,
was back with my
but
parents.
not getting along,
No, I was evil.
but sober for a year, sober evil,
Yes,
evil sober
evil sober.
because of
I didn't deal with any of the stuff here.
okay, that makes sense.
So, I was sitting in meetings preaching about sobriety, and I was absolutely just I was sick, just a sick human being.
All right, so then what happened?
So, while I was sober, I had used with this guy when I was doing the heroin and meth and I overdosed,
Mhm.
and, he was still getting loaded, and I decided that I was still gonna date him. Um, and, I moved out of my parents' house because they were like, "We don't want you to date him, and if you're gonna date him, we don't want you here." Said, "Okay, bye." And I stayed with him. I was working in treatment, going to meetings. I was still sober. I stayed sober for about 6 months of it, and then it didn't work out that way anymore.
Mm,
I ended up getting loaded with him, and I was with him for almost 5 years.
wow,
Yeah,
which would be up until 30 years old,
yep,
using everything.
everything.
When was weren't you homeless for a while living in, the ground? or underground with some people?
Yes, so there's,
Is this
storm
during
drain tunnels
is this
in.
during that time?
Yes,
During the 5 years?
yes,
Was he homeless with you?
yes, he was.
So both of you guys resorted to the streets, and what was that? Because parents just said, "You're done," like, "You're loaded again?"
So, my family, which I appreciate about them, has never been like, "Oh, you can stay here," even, like, when I was getting high. Like, they did not enable me at all. I did not ask them for money, I did not ask them for help. Like, I wanted
You knew
me
not to ask because they wouldn't help?
um, in my head, I told myself the reason was because I would never do that.
Hmm,
But yeah, I knew they wouldn't help, and, I also didn't want them around me, period.
hmm.
I did not want them to see me like that. I did not want them around because they didn't like the guy I was with, and they tried. They tried for a long
So
time.
there was a small level of respect for your parents, at least for the way they brought you up.
Oh, yeah, like, I still like, I cried over my parents all the time, like, "I wanna be with my family," but I also wanted to be with him. So, I couldn't let go of the guy, so I couldn't have the family,
Mhm.
and I couldn't let go of the drugs, so my family would like, they were there, but they weren't there, you know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
they never gave up on me.
Okay. So you went underground with this guy, you were in, like, a group of homeless people?
Yeah, so there's, like, tunnels, storm drain, like, tunnels in Santa Ana. There's, like, manholes that you can go into. Um, I mean, you're not supposed to, but, we did it anyways. That's what you do.
Generator down there?
Yeah, there
Lights?
there were lights. People would bring lights and generators and stuff down there
Any cooking going on?
sometimes.
Of food?
Yeah. I mean, we smoked with all different types of things, so, like, we'd use torches and
Sh
those
sh
nectar collector things and bongs and stuff like that.
Nectar collector. If Ryan Kendall is watching this, remember the nectar collector? Yeah,
Um, and
the nectar.
obviously all of it was stolen.
Mhm.
Um,
Oh, shooting dope down there too?
yeah,
Sharing needles?
with one person I did, yeah.
Didn't get the hep C?
No, I did not.
Good.
That was that was, thank God for that one
Yeah.
for sure.
Uh, so what was your breaking point? What was your turning point? Did you get is that where after that experience that you got sober, or did you go to sober living, or did you go to treatment again? What how did you clean up your life? Why did you clean up
So, I went through a series of unfortunate events when I was out in the street. One of them was my ex went to go pick up some drugs and he left me with our friend at a La Quinta in Costa Mesa. And the cops pulled up because someone said that it looked like there were people unresponsive in the car.
life?
A whole situation went down. I'm not going to go super deep into it, but pretty much I watched the cops shoot my friend 8 times and I almost got shot in the process. And they held me for like 12 hours and they were trying to get me to answer questions. I was in shock. I couldn't really answer any of them. And instead of getting help, I went and got more loaded because I couldn't cope with the fact that I just watched my friend die. Um,
They shot him to death?
yeah, he died.
And then when you said you went to go get loaded, it was fentanyl at this point?
Mhm.
And fentanyl made its way into your life in this 5-year period?
Yeah, so in the first, like, 2 months of my relapse, like, I was doing heroin, and then you couldn't get it anymore.
Everything was fentanyl at that
It
point.
wa yeah, it was impossible to get
So
it.
wait, when you say you couldn't get it, were you getting stuff that people were telling you was heroin that looked like heroin, but it was actually cut with fentanyl?
I knowingly was getting stuff that was heroin with fentanyl, at the
So so
beginning.
so to a certain extent, during that time, it was still heroin, but it was cut with fentanyl? Was it
Mhm.
black tar
It
heroin?
was black tar heroin with fentanyl sprinkled on top of it.
And what do you assume or think or know why whoever was distributing this stuff, why were they putting stuff that looked like heroin and may have been somewhat heroin, but why were they cutting it with fentanyl?
I think because fentanyl was more accessible at this point, that they were trying to get people addicted to the fentanyl so that once the heroin was gone, they would just go directly to the fentanyl.
Do you think maybe they were cutting it into actual heroin to make it just more potent and more strong?
Um, I think that, like, people were like, "Oh, it only has, like, a little bit of fentanyl, so it's not gonna be as strong because it's heroin with fentanyl."
Do you think the people that were making this stuff never thought or cared that, well, we're trying to sell this to people on the streets, but it might kill them? Like, they don't think that
They
far.
don't care.
They don't care, but I mean, don't they want to keep making money off people that are buying the drugs?
There'll be more.
There'll be more people
There'll
that abuse it.
always be more.
How many overdoses did you experience during your using time?
Around 37.
How many times were you hospitalized?
Um, I would say about 30 times.
Ambulances coming to get you?
Mhm.
Were you Narcan?
Multiple times.
Were you Did your family ever come to the hospital to see you?
Absolutely not. I did not want them to know. They didn't know until they got the bills.
So they didn't really know about your countless overdoses.
They they found out about them because they would get bills in the mail for ambulance rides and hospital stays.
So then finally you decided why to get sober because the guy got shot?
That was, like, one of the things that, like, triggered the events. I kept getting arrested. I was being treated very poorly. My ex was very abusive.
Physically,
Yes,
mentally,
yes,
verbally?
yes. Um, he has a twin, and both of them would be abusive towards me. And I think it had something to do with being in psychosis, but, like, I also was convinced I could not live without this man.
Were you in psychosis when you were convinced of that?
Yes, absolutely. Like,
So this during this time of doing fentanyl and overdosing, you were also doing meth,
yes.
and meth brought about psychosis.
Yeah.
And how long were you in psychosis? Do you assume or
About
estimate?
2 years.
2 years of psychosis straight through, or
It was like a well, I
when
kept
you would
getting
use,
arrested. I'd get arrested, and it would get out of my system a little bit, and I'd get, like, a little bit better,
you'd
and then I'd
normalize.
get out, and I would do a shot, and immediately it was just right back at it, and I'd be up. The longest I was up, I think, was, like, 16 days.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Did you ever shoot fentanyl?
Not on purpose. My ex's brother and I were like, "Oh, let's do a shot," and he didn't tell me that he put fentanyl in it, and, like, I immediately knew something was wrong, and my ex actually I, like, tried to hide it from him that I was shooting up, but that day I did not try to hide it from him because I got scared, and I remember, like, trying to walk over to him and, like, falling and being like, "Hey, like, I just did something really bad." And then he Narcaned me and I got really sick.
Did you when you finally decided to quit,
Mhm.
where did you go?
So, I think that I was, like, ready to go, like, about 3 months before I got clean, and the reason I say that is, I was panhandling, flying a sign on a freeway off-ramp off of 55 and Dyer in Santa Ana, and my family at this point had absolutely no idea where I was. Like, not one person knew where I was. I didn't have a phone for, like, almost a year. Every time I get one, it gets stolen. And it just so happened that I was flying a sign and my brother was going to pick up his car at the Valvoline right there. And he just looked up from his phone for once and he saw me and he came and talked to me. And I remember just like crying and being like, "I'm so sorry." And he's like, "No, you're not." And I'm like, "Well, probably not," because I kept doing what I was doing. And
Had you been showered or no?
oh no, 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 no. I would say I probably hadn't showered in like 2 months. I
And that area is like pretty run down. There's a
It is
lot of
filthy.
homelessness.
It is
A lot
disgusting.
of addiction in that
Mhm.
area.
Um, so I think I was, like, ready to go, but I wasn't ready to let go of the guy. And, so about 30 days before I got sober, I told my brother, I was like, "I will get sober before my 30th birthday, I promise." And they're like, "Okay, whatever, like, this girl is not gonna get clean."
Right.
And every day I'd tell my ex, "29 days, I'm leaving. 28 days." And I don't think he believed me until, like, the 3rd the like, I had 3 days left, and I was like, "I'm leaving. Like, I'm going to go get clean with or without you." And, the day that I went to go to treatment, my ex was, like, super barred out on Xanax. He was all messed up, and this couple had robbed us the night before. They had sold us 3 grams of fentanyl, and they stole it back, and
Mm.
he saw them, and, he was just too messed up to fight, and the couple started jumping him. So, naturally, I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're jumping my boyfriend, let me go help."
Mm.
I tried to pull him off, and they turned around and started jumping me. I have a fractured orbital bone right here. I have nerve damage in my face, and I have a 1.3 centimeter penile cyst in my brain, from getting jumped. And like at that point, I knew it was done. Like I was like, I'm out of here. Like I just got my butt beat. Like I am all messed up. My eye is swollen shut. The vein is popping out in my face because I'm so swollen right here. And my brother came to get me, and I was like, "I wanna get loaded one more time, just one more time." So they they were like, "Okay." And my ex took my money to go pick up and never came back. He did not say bye to me. And I left,
Mm.
and I have not turned back since.
Where'd you go?
I am fortunate enough that my family paid for me to go to treatment. Um, I did 3 months. I did a month in RTC, and I did 2 months IOP. And
Straight to RTC, you didn't even go to detox?
no, well, I detoxed first, but,
What did you detox off of?
fentanyl, meth, crack, and Xanax,
The whole gamut.
all of it.
Okay, and then you did treatment for what, 3 months?
I did 3 months, yeah.
And then something stuck this time?
Yeah, so when I got to detox, I was like, "I don't wanna be here." Like, I did not want to be there at
Mhm.
all, but I knew I didn't wanna do what I was doing anymore. Like, something wasn't working. I So, the day I got to detox, I actually got sent away because I had lice, like, really, really bad.
From the
Terrible,
streets?
yes, terrible lice. So bad. My parents had to pay a bunch of money to have this lady remove lice from my hair for 5 hours. So I am kicking. My parents pull their motor home up to an urgent care, and this lady is removing lice from my hair.
Oh my god.
So I am just going through it, like going through a living hell.
Mhm.
And then finally, I got medically cleared at the hospital, and I went back to detox, and I pretty much didn't take any of the detox meds because I was just tired. And a detox lasted a really long time, but I don't want to forget how bad it was. And that was part of the reason I was like, I'm not going to take these meds. I'm going to go through a living hell, so I never want to go through this again. And let me tell you, it was the longest detox I've ever had.
Mhm.
It was the worst. Um, I physically did not start feeling better until about a month and a half after I decided to get clean.
I mean, there was a lot of wear and tear on your body, you were out
Mhm.
there, you know?
Yeah.
So it would make sense even at such a young age.
Mhm.
Um, so the Lauren that I know now, I think you had called me about a year ago. Um, you were looking for sober living.
Mhm.
Then, like, we lost touch because you didn't come. Anyway, so but then afterwards, we ran into each other again, and now this is what I see. I see a young lady who is extremely serious about her recovery. You've got a great mentor. You've got great mentors. You have been involved in many other people's recovery process. I think this is a fucking absolute miracle that a person
Thank
that
you.
is, you know, roaming the streets. I was homeless too. I can say
Mhm.
this like I was a mutant pretty much. I was
Mhm.
a zombie. Like I was out there and I couldn't even put words together, let alone my
Oh,
thought
yeah,
process was
for
just
sure.
shot out. I mean, all I thought about morning, noon, and night was just getting high. So I didn't have to really look at my circumstances. This is who you are now. Look, you're a woman who I think you're living back with your family.
Mhm.
They trust you. You're doing well for yourself. Uh, I would like, for you to put some kind of energy in the universe and let people know um, why there's hope and how you would be willing to talk to anybody that might be struggling, that young, old, whatever, that did any of those drugs or did none of those drugs, but has questions. I think, I mean, I'd love to connect you to these people because we need more of the youth to get off of
Mhm.
this fucking ridiculous fentanyl drug,
Absolutely.
let alone all these other drugs. We've got a lot of miracles around us. We also have a lot of fallen uh, friends,
Mm.
that have fallen to um, this whole craze. What can you say to give people hope and let them know that they can get out of this mess?
So, what I can say is I went from being the dirtiest little dirtbag on the planet, like absolutely just a disgusting, terrible person, criminal, whatever, drug addict. If I can go from that to be sitting in this chair right now talking to you about what I'm doing to stay clean, like I think anyone can do it. Because honestly, like I'm not going to say this is easy because this is not easy at all, but it has been the most fulfilling, worth it experience. Like I've had my periods of time in sobriety where I've gone through it. I made the mistake, of course. I sat on my four step and I did that for 6 months. And I can honestly say I had a period of time in my sobriety where I was like suicidal. Like, oh my gosh, like, why do I feel like this? And then I wasn't calling my sponsor, none of that. I got deep into the program after that. I was like, what am I doing?
Mhm.
Like, why am I doing this to myself? And there's a lot of people that I decided to connect myself with. I like opened myself up to other people because it's scary opening yourself up to women. As a woman, you don't want to do that. Like there is some weird thing where we do not like each other.
Mhm.
And when you get clean and you start having to talk to people and like get to know other women, it's like, no, I'm not doing that. But I allowed myself to open up to that. And if you just allow yourself to even open up to one person, it doesn't have to be a bunch of people. The rest will come. Um, you got to find your tribe and find the people that will stick by you. Like, I have people I know that if I went and grabbed my phone right now, I could call them and they're going to answer like the first ring.
Genuine friends.
Genuine people who actually care
They
about
really
me.
care about your well-being.
Yeah, like, they're obviously like, I have people who I still think about as my friends that I was close with when I was out on the street, but they're not gonna do for me what my friends now do for me. Like, I can honestly say that the people I've surrounded myself with, they genuinely love me, and I genuinely love myself now. Like, there has not been any point in my life where I've ever cared for myself.
I gotta say, just listening from the top of this podcast all the way through today, to think that you're a young lady that was like put into private school, like Catholic private school, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Christian, yeah.
Christian, okay. Um, there's an intention there. Like we want our
Mhm.
daughter to become educated in this and that. To hear about the girl next door going from that type of person to becoming, to experimenting and then becoming an addict and then ends up homeless. And I know a lot more about you. I know you did a
Mhm.
lot of robbing, stealing, and cheating and doing all the stuff that you
Yes.
needed to do to nurture your addiction, all the way to a homeless person. that's on the side of a street,
Mhm.
like spinning a sign or whatever you were saying you were doing.
Mhm.
Regardless, like to hear, I believe in you. I believe that there's just something that happens to some of us that when we're done, we're done.
Mhm.
Like we are done. And I look to you as a person. We were talking earlier when we were filming some TikToks. I told you I have all these youngsters, lots of youngsters that are curious about, how to quit vaping, how to quit smoking weed and things like that.
Mhm.
And you're like, send them to me. I'm like, with all due, I would love to. Like that, it would be my ultimate pleasure. We need more young people like you to
Mhm.
be able to talk to them because they might get more from you than a guy like me. Um, it's really hard for me to have a conversation with a 12-year-old, 16-year-old that says,
Mhm.
"How do I quit smoking weed?" Well, what am I supposed to tell you? Like, just quit? Like
Oh,
I could give
yeah.
you 10 different reasons why it's not good,
Mhm.
but I know when I was 16 and curious, if there was somebody that I could ask, which there was no TikTok or some older guy that
Yeah.
was, um, I wouldn't know who to ask, right? So I just
Right.
ask my friends, and I continue like getting high with them,
Right.
right? But it's good for people to have an older mentor, somebody that's not that old, but that has,
Mhm.
I mean, you were their age not long ago, a decade ago,
Right.
right? So I think you could definitely get through to them too. Um, it's been an honor and a privilege to have you on here.
Thank you
Um,
so much.
no, for sure. Like I thoroughly enjoyed our conversations today, and thank you for just putting good energy out there and for staying sober. We need you, Lauren. We definitely need you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And with that said, we are going to sign off. If you ever need any kind of services or help, you can always reach out to me at 310-596-9356. I am an interventionist. I do a lot of interventions. I also do coaching, recovery coaching, life coaching, helping people uh, learn life skills. And I do family coaching now too. 310-596-9356. My name is Pej. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.